We tell them like this, yo. I'm a African. I'm a African. I'm a African. I'm a African. Yeah, y'all like that shit, right? This man mind is open. I'm a African. I'm a African. I'm a African. I'm a. Let's get back to the gritty. We're spitting in my city. No more weak New Yorkers get booed like Charles Smitty. My flow bar city and full of velocity. It's so real you get knocked out. Spar with me. Jaws are sticky. Two drags and hit me. The best shit got me spinning like I'm sitting on frisbees. The black Bixby. I get green to fix me. Green slam to 60. Punch chunky is Monique. Occupation. Right, my aggravation is survive. So either way I'm a blast through stagnation. With fire hotter than explosions at gas stations. They have to evacuate the town in mass faces. The fumes of the truth. Of the diseased nations. I'm a platoon in a booth. See a crew and I'ma face them. Every song singing my tongue is a sword slaying. Uncle Tom rappers and crackers and think I'm playing. I walk strong, soul prints in the pavement, panther style, cooking in my kitchen, gun in the apron. The Constitution says we can. Why we get cases? Maybe it's the color of the skin on all our faces. Think I'm working for wages? Your mind's outrageous. Can't work where I can't speak my mind and say shit. Gotta turn the other cheek while I work on my patience. I done worked another week, my boss be laying a patient. I ain't impatient, I ain't fucking with racists. When you tell it like it is, they ask why you complaining. Why? Must be insane. Need of asylum. I see the ways of the world and you can't get it by them. Devil, you gotta fry him. You got venom inside him. Did you dirty right here as you looking for Sodom? I'm not looking for problems. Only way to resolve them. Killing my brothers with revolvers. We never resolve them. Yeah, I did this properly. Verses keep getting props from me. A man not concerned with the verse get a drop from me. This man is concerned with assets, own property. Due to seeking knowledge and stuff, I know it's not to be. Black in power, more than ass and dollars. First hitting like airplanes when they crash the towers. Minus the conspiracy. Hold up if you hearing me. Truth and dedication, me, these devils is fearing me. Open the book and take a moment to look. You call a crack at your friend, but I call him a crook. Continue to spit lead till my continent is fed. Two ways to leave the battlefield, victorious or dead. Made my blood shed till the streets run red. Die in the name of freedom, independence, and bread. Call me too black, I would call it a fact. It's me and green, connect like train cars on the track. Watch out the sight or the street. Where the states want my target, I'm a sniper on the beat. See the pig and I'm a spark. Get 'em, blasting with something, blade cutting like southern fucking. Whether pumping something or drunk off the southern comfort. I'm in Times Square right before the Africans starting the revolution. Getting popping like snapchat. You forget about the people when you at the top. Cut the head off, betray to execute them while the cracker watch. I'm a slave, Jesus won't save you. Cause you declare loyalty to those who enslaved you. The sequel to Bombay while puffing that Bombay. You a snitch, you be speaking through the wild like Kanye. Jason is back, you can chase with the axe from youth to mass. Young Khalid Muhammad and rap the whole nation of black men is safe in the trap. Your own people wanna kill you when you stating the facts. Black people signing up to go and fight in Iraq. The same government tried to kill you by supplying the crack. Me and Dito Green, we just supplying the tracks. But it's more than just rap, the black messiah is back. Yeah, I'm a African, I'm a African, I'm a African, I'm a African. We some Africans, we some Africans, we some Africans, we some Africans. We ain't hustlers no more, baby. Wake up, black people, black power. YaaYaa, united front, we out.
All right. Good evening, family. It's been a long 2 weeks, but we are back. This is Sister YaaYaa with the Taste of the Southwest. Back with you again this week for another show. And I'm really glad that that's the song that was playing. You know, I'm an African. I'm an African homie. Like, I think that today's show is basically about how hard it is to get to that place and the fight that it takes to be an African. So the topic, we're calling this Re-Afrikanization, the fight for your life. You know, it's kind of an extension of the last show that we did, which was titled Wanting Change Bad Enough to Change. And it speaks to how, you know, we've said a lot of times on this show that what you want is to fight, but how the fight starts in you first. So, you know, that we know we're in a war. We understand we have an enemy now at this point, many of us. And we just wanted to kind of clear up some things that we brought up. You know, what does it mean when you say your battleground begins inside of you, that you're the first fight, you're the first front of the fight, meaning fighting whatever's gotten in you to hurt you from the inside of you. So it looks like it you, but, there are other things that work in us. So we kind of want to clarify a few things from the last show, just to make sure, we're all on the same page, and that we all understand what the fight looks like and what it feels like. Because you can call it that, and it just becomes kind of a euphemism. Yeah, it's a fight, we're in a war, sounds good, but what does that mean? And how do you fight? Because nobody's fighting to lose. We all want to win, especially when our lives are at stake. And to be able to live and call yourself an African, we got to win that fight. Obviously, we already are Africans, so we are that. But to fight for your sanity, to be able to stand up and say and know each day more and more clearly what that means, and an African being a healthy person, how to get to that place of health. Because we get to a point where, we look around, we see, okay, something's not right. Either within us, something's got to give. I need some change in my life. I'm kind of sick of living a particular way when I know it could be better. I used to call myself an African American. Now I just want to be an African. What does that transition look like? And in the world around you, you see there needs to be some kind of change. Well, how do you fight to make that happen? What does it look like? And so we kind of wanted to get into talking about that some this week, and clear it up even more, and just give more steps. Because Re-Afrikanization is a process that you don't end until your life ends. So we got to kind of dig in and see, what life is going to look like. What's the process like? So I do have Brother Laila again with me on the show.
Hello, family.
And we just kind of want to jump right into it. Also, let me say this before we get going. If you happen to be listening online, we always want to hear from our listeners. So we'd like for you to become a caller and call into the show, so we can hear some of your thoughts and what you think, what you've experienced even in becoming an African more and more each day. So the number is 760-569-7676. Access code 948-656#. So, Brother Laila, did you kind of want to jump in there and get us going?
Absolutely. And one more time on the conference call, the reason that we want you to become callers as well as listeners is a lot of times when we're in this process, as I found just in sharing my experience in the process of Re-Afrikanization, a lot of what I received from yourself, Sister YaaYaa, and from Dr. Marcus, and from the ancestors in prayer and the spirit realm, what I received has to be somewhat shared in just the everyday walk through life, which obviously in our everyday walk we encounter people, we encounter those around us, people at maybe possibly various stages of a process, some process, obviously during the process of everyone living, they're at certain stages of awareness of the world around them. So we get a lot from sharing with the people around us. So when you call in to the show, we hear your thoughts and we appreciate that, and then we can actually receive from you experiences that you may go through, and also your perceptions that might be formed by that. And also, so one of the biggest things in this past week, I personally wanted to kind of, I had an experience and I've shared with you, Sister YaaYaa, one of my battles has always been, and many people on the radio show have you listened to before, I've heard one of my battles is battling with the addiction of nicotine. See how that, it's even hard to say it. But what happens is this is one of the things I've found standing in the way of me living as a healthy person, as a true African, and fighting for my life. So that addiction, in any event, over the past week, I have been able to put that down and kind of live for 7 days without that in my life. Now, I had a lot of experiences through that, so And reaching back to last week's show, obviously some kind of movement happened with me. At some point, I decided to say, hey, I'm gonna fight this thing. I'm gonna really fight it, and I have fought it in the past. So throughout the experience of those 7 days, everybody kind of gets, the way I see it is, everybody kind of gets messages from their thoughts, when they say prayers, or if you kind of just talk to yourself in your own mind, or you try to figure out things that are going on. So one of the things I noticed was the first day without smoking cigarettes, there was a kind of constant bother of, okay, well, I'm going to transition from waking up to getting ready for work and going to work and going to lunch. And in those transitions, usually I've become accustomed to smoking cigarettes and smoking a cigarette in between those transitions. So one of the battles has been for me is, okay, well, what do I put in place of that? What do I put in place of that? So that kind of goes with, this is one of I have to stand and fight that. I already decided that this is what I decided to do. I decided to fight, and my fight right now only lasted it lasted 7 days, and now I'm going back to the fight today for 14 days, and this is just one of the tactics I'm working on right now with this cigarette thing. So going back to the main topic of the show, my purpose in sharing this is to say that once you decide to make a change in your life, it seems as though that change has to somehow come, like that change has to be realized. There has to be a vision, the way I see it, a vision of who this person is you're going to be. Well, if you don't have that habit of smoking, you may not be able to connect with, well, you're the same person, you just stopped smoking, and some people have stopped smoking. But one of the things that I noticed was that I had to actually almost redefine myself. And before I go further, Sis YaaYaa, are you able to connect with that? And do you think people listening are able to connect with that, even if their addiction or something like that may not be cigarettes? The idea of redefining yourself.
Absolutely, because when you were saying that, I thought, like you said, you kind of have to redefine yourself. That sounds big, like, oh, it's a defining moment in your life. But when I think back to even outside of an addiction to a particular substance, just old ways I used to have. I can relate to it as, you build up a name for yourself of being a particular way. Like, sometimes as a woman, you get little T-shirts, you can relate. People understand you to be a certain way. So, you might walk around with the title, oh, I'm a B. Yeah, I know I'm a B. You know what I'm saying? Some people embrace these things. And that may be a little bit harsh sounding, but there are other things, too, that we embrace in that way that, the way that we justify things and say, oh, it's just me, it's just who I am. That's just how I've always been. That's how my mom is. That's how all the women in my family are. Or, or even for a man, you know what I'm saying? I'm that dude, the macho dude, or the woman manipulator,
Or the nice guy.
That too, same thing. There could be some negative drive behind you being this way, but you have now, like we talked about last week, and we'll get into this some more today, or the last show, the fact that we take responsibility and say, oh, this is me, this is who I am, but really it's something else operating in you. You could have gone through some kind of past abuse that caused you to have these characteristics. That doesn't make it truly who you are. It's what you had to become because of your circumstances. So I definitely recognize, in what I've gone through, having to just redefine, okay, stopping myself short of justifying, this is just how I am. Wait a minute. That's not how I have to be. That's not really me. So get away from being so comfortable with what you've always been. When you know a change needs to happen, give yourself that room to knock down that name that you built for yourself.
Man, yeah, okay. And that's really good to hear that you can connect with that. Mm-hmm. Because my thing just happens to be cigarettes. So I'm going through these 7 days that I experienced last week. Okay. So moving forward on that, the way I see it is a lot of times part of this redefinition process, redefining the self, you're saying, okay, at some point I picked up the habit of smoking cigarettes. I know this is not good for me. I'm a number of years past the year that I chose to start smoking cigarettes, if I cannot date myself on the radio show.
Okay.
But I've been smoking cigarettes for a lot of years, so I notice body changes, things that are going on in my body. So this also adds to, I can see this isn't good for my life. I can see that, my wind is breaking down a little bit. Or possibly, I might want to try to sing a song, and my voice can't handle it, or my wind doesn't support it. Things like that. And if any musicians listening can probably connect with that kind of thing. But so I see these things that might be coming in the way of me actually doing the things that I want to do on a day-to-day basis, which are going to add to how I define myself. I want to do this. Well, if I continue to see myself as someone who has to grab a cigarette every time they eat, then if I'm in a group, for instance, if I'm in a group out to lunch with a group of people, now I have to disconnect myself at a time. If this is truly the way, like if I'm believing that this is my true self, this is how I've defined myself, now I have to break myself away from a group of people that I have formed some kind of connection with and I'm relating to in some way, just to cater to this habit that I've allowed to define my life. So the redefinition of that is, okay, I finished a meal, I can sit here and I can see myself sitting here and just finishing a meal. It doesn't have to be any more than that. Just like I say, I don't have to be this other person, or I don't have to be that dude. I don't have to be the nice guy if my circumstances don't fit with being nice in a particular situation. This is when you bring that up, that hits hard with me too in terms of ways is, I came up and always thinking, we've been told that I'm a nice guy, because I do have a good bit of shyness to me. So, especially dealing with women, I've always heard, you're the nice guy, and the nice guy, and the nice guy, you start to define and identify with these things. So it's not much different than even the cigarette smoking thing. You find yourself in a relationship, and you find yourself saying, okay, well, I'm the nice guy, so even though this person's dumping on me, I'm the nice guy. So wait, that's not helping me live my healthy life. That's not helping me live an African life. I don't want to be defined like that. So now I see, okay, that's happening. Now I need to take another road. And I'm kind of maybe bouncing back and forth between the cigarette and other circumstances, but they all kind of...
It works.
Okay.
It makes sense.
Okay. So that's the kind of thing that reaching back to last show and actually making a move, stepping out, and finally finding some strength. Maybe the timing was right, or maybe you're feeling strong in this day. You've done enough of those things that motivate you to making a change, or maybe the stars are just aligned the right way. Sometimes we talk about that, and you say, okay, I'm going to take the stand, and I'm going to put up, my dukes, and I'm going to fight. So again, going back to my 7 days, one of the other things that I realized was I found myself on, like, say, day 6. I'm kind of proud in the fact that, hey, I'm really living this new life. A part of it, I'm beginning to see myself. I've seen myself this way for 6 days now, and I like it. I'm sitting here. I get out of work. I come home. I'm reading a book that's feeding my mind and to an African sense of self. I'm drinking more water now because I have time for that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I can actually fit that in between sticking a cigarette in my mouth. And these are things that go into a good feeling. And yet and still, there's a big problem that the old self or the false self that we talked about last week seems to want to stick its head back in there and say, wait, don't forget about me. And you even mentioned earlier like that the idea of rejection, that kind of, we've talked about rejection being at the root of a lot of addictions and always trying to fill that. So the idea that the old self comes in and says, hey, don't reject me, you kind of feel a tendency to cater to that. Does that, how does that fit? Like
to go back, it makes sense because this was the life you knew. Whatever we're talking about,
Absolutely.
You were a mean person, you were a good, the nice guy, as you say. You were a smoker, you were a drinker, you were addicted to sex, or whatever. Across the gamut, once you decide to step outside of that, you were a Eurocentric person. Now you decide, I need to step outside of that. I'm an African. I want to be healthy. I want to kick this thing that's hurting me out, or what's hurting other people around me, hurting my relationship. It's bad. It needs to go. That's why it's a fight. The fight starts right then, because the you thought you were, this comfortable place you used to live in, right or wrong, healthy or not. It's like, oh, no, we're not going to change nothing now. Don't get beside yourself. It sounds good. You write these articles. You want to get more wind and sing songs. That's great. And the stars may be aligned for you. But you're not going to get out of this without a fight because you didn't get in it in one day. You're not going to just get out of it in one day. It took you years to get into this position in a lot of cases that we find ourselves in. We were years being Eurocentric. We were years being injected with all these things that say being an African, oh, why you want to be that? That's not, you're an African American or you're just black, but don't be that. We were in that way longer. So we got to respect the fact that it's going to take more and it's going to be hard to get out. I like the fact that you brought up, the fact that, first of all, you were honest enough to say it was 7 days. That 7 days is over and I have actually been smoking cigarettes since then. But that's real. It sounds good to say, and some people can do this. I can't knock them. I haven't experienced it like this where I say, okay, I'm going to stop this. And then the next day, I just stop. And it is no more. I don't do it anymore. That's not really realistic for the way it happens for people. And so I like that you said you use that basically to build up your strength.
As a loss.
Yeah, because now I like this. You said you can aim for 14 days because you've done 7. It didn't have to be a straight 21 all in one shot.
True.
You got to work with what you got.
Very true.
So I definitely I like that. And how you said you were able to see that you were proud of yourself for that. Even though you went back to smoking cigarettes, now you can do it and you can use that. Keep going.
Right. So now some of that again. I may have mentioned that one of the things I also experienced was like kind of like a panic or a real discomfort with that old self kind of sneaking itself in and saying, hey, don't reject me.
Right.
And you have a tendency to reach back and say, okay, all right. However, I hope that fits in some people's mind, but the idea is now when I back at this, it's only been 2 days that I did go back to smoking. And now when I go to 14, that there's a whole 7 days now where there's a familiar new me going back into that. You know what I'm saying? And then so now I have the strength of that to build my momentum to go into the 14 days. And that just really, honestly, came to me now. I didn't even plan that out. But as and this is one of the things about working with the mind that I'm learning, and hopefully this is a sharing for the family, is that sometimes things don't all come to you at once, and you don't plan things out the way they're just gonna be.
Right.
Some people may be able to say, tomorrow I'm just going to stop eating pork or whatever. Some people have food addictions, of course. We know about that, and so some people may be able to say, tomorrow I'm just gonna stop eating pork, and boom, just like that for the rest of their life, for the rest of 70, 80 years, they don't touch pork. Right. Okay, great. That's not me. And that I gotta understand. I gotta be okay with that,
Right.
so that I can continue to fight.
Right. Right.
And hopefully that shares with the family that there's like an infinite number of variations to how this could impact us all. You know, we didn't all have the same upbringings. We weren't all injected with Urugu virus in the same ways. We don't even all share the same surroundings on a day-to-day basis.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't work the same jobs. We don't do the same work. We didn't watch the same cartoons coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And those are all ways that Urugu's injected into us. And those are the things that we either need to rest from, we need to understand, that kind of thing. So this is the one thing that last week has been big for me, and for those who might, because it's been a long learning process for me to understand the sorting out process of seeing the self different from the fictional self, or different from all those things that the self participates in, which may not help this idea of a healthy life. Mm-hmm. You know, sorting those things out. The idea of looking at the things that I want to see me as, and looking at those things that, okay, I might be at a certain point, but I know those things don't contribute to a healthy African life. Mm-hmm. So now they must be discarded, as learning from Dr. Clark. As he says, that it doesn't add to African liberation, so now that must be discarded. Right. And I see that. So that's one of the big things that I got from this past 7 days that I wanted to share.
Well, I think again, like I said, I really appreciate you sharing that, because one more thing. How did you do it? What did you do? You know, because, I mean, did you just not going to smoke? Just didn't smoke. How did that work?
Yeah, and I didn't add that. So I got the patch. The first quick answer is I got the patch. But interestingly enough, since you asked, I have tried just that. All right, I'm going to suck it up. This is it. I got to do it. Mm-hmm. And I've actually, when I did that was about a month ago. I tried that, and that lasted for about 7 hours. So I made it about 7 hours. Now, I'm looking at it that way now, right? Yeah. Because I want to look at it positively. Right. But at the time, I was really looking at it defeated. You know, like I think I made a decision here. I think I said I'm not going to do something, and now I'm smoking again. So yeah, I felt like that was a failure. But now I'm looking at it as, okay, I made it 7 hours. I did make that decision. But so this time I thought, okay, I got to take a different way. I got to try something else. So I went out and got the patch, and that was kind of that was a help for me too. So the patch helped me in this case.
And that's real. I mean, you know, we could go, you know, all the way to the motherland with it and say the patch is not natural, it didn't grow from the ground, and you could come at that a few ways, but one thing you can't say is, one, you weren't real about it. You got to the place where you were real enough to say, I need a little extra help, so I'm just going to get it.
Yeah.
You got through your 7 days. And I think a very key thing for people to realize, whenever you're trying to make a change, don't all or nothing yourself. Don't say, okay, I have this goal, and I'm going to give myself 2 days, 5 days, 10 days, whatever, to get there. And if you don't get there, that's it. You're a failure. Like you said, now you're able to see that 7 hours was actually a small battle. It was a small victory you were able to win. So I would encourage people, and this is something I experienced, and I'm kind of more of an all or nothing person. A lot of times I find myself being that way, saying, oh, I didn't do it all the way, so, you know, I didn't do anything at all. That's just not true. Sometimes you have to be content with choosing the lesser of evil. And I think that doesn't sound beautiful. It doesn't sound absolutely perfect, but I think it's realistic. And so if you have to use the patch to get off of smoking cigarettes, I think the cigarettes at the end of the day may hurt you a little bit worse than the actual patch.
Absolutely. And one thing, you know, said there is that, you know, that was my first, you know, that was a standing ground at one point where I needed the patch. Mm-hmm. This next 14 days that I'm putting in my mind, it may be that I only need the patch 8 days out of that. And I don't know, you know, you know what I'm saying? Like, right. You never know how things may happen. So, like you say, staying away from that all or nothing, or the idea that we can actually see all of life as it's going to be down the road in the future. We can't do that. We got to allow for life to kind of play its way out.
You got to take it step by step.
That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, but just use anything you can as a springboard.
Absolutely.
Anything you can. This may not be the best thing right now, but I'm going to shuffle around and get it up underneath my feet and stand up a little bit higher. My goal is really, really high, but if I have to go, inch by inch to get up 20 feet, I'm just going to keep taking the inches. At some point, I'm going to have to take a 5-inch leap. It's going to get easier. You just have to, and I believe in baby steps. You know what I mean? No shame in taking baby steps, because like we talked about last show, one thing to kind of emphasize more or expound upon a little bit more is this idea that we're constantly going through a cycle of life and death. So once you decide, I'm reaching the point of where I'm going to die in a particular area, in order to begin to live in a new area in that cycle of life and death, you start out as a baby on that level. And it's not fair to ask a baby to get in the ring and become the heavyweight champion of the world. That's just not acceptable. So who are you to think that you should just be able to just come out, not knowing anything about this new endeavor you're embarking on, this new you, this new life, even though you've seen other people do it, you've heard all these great things. Who are you that you don't have to go through the baby steps and crawl like everybody else had to start out crawling? And don't rob yourself of this necessary step. You have to mature and grow in order to get where you're going. You're not going to be able to really fight. That's such a basic principle of life. You're not going to be able to get around it. And don't make yourself the one exception to be the first baby to ever,
who? Mike Tyson.
Anybody. You know what I'm saying? I want to have somebody a little newer out there. You know what I'm saying? From the Southwest, I think about my boy Mandingo from the Austin, Texas area. He first came to mind. Shout out.
Okay.
But, just any kind of, you're not going to be able to do it. And you shouldn't expect that of yourself.
And that's a very good point. And hopefully this shares with the family, because it just hit my mind that you asked the question, who are you to do that? And one thing that hit my mind is, it's possible that who we're playing out at that point are the abusers that abused us as youths, that made us believe all these things about us ourselves. We've gone through a lot of things, and for anyone who might not have been listening to all the shows or possibly doesn't follow Re-Afrikanization for that long, the idea that you're sorting out yourself from the fictional self also includes in that we grow up as babies and we're constant. Who do we get the Urugu virus injected into us by first? That's by our parents, by the people. If we weren't raised by a mother and father, whoever was
who had access to that,
absolutely had absolute access to it. Those people, as you put it to me, in helping me understand. Those people who were responsible for our safety, responsible for our learning, for our growth.
Right.
This is where we first got injected with the Urugu virus being the way to be white, this westernization, this whitening of your life, and the idea that the only right way to be is white. And that comes to us through media sources. It comes to us through our education, the institutions of education. Those of us who have spent far too long in those institutions, just being pumped full of this, you're not good enough unless you do it the right way.
That's right.
So going back to, again, what hit my head is you say, who are you? Well, I think in those moments we may be just acting as those abusers, because we learn that that's how you're supposed to bring up a baby. You're supposed to tell it it's supposed to be walking its first time, and it doesn't take a step. Oh, come on, it's supposed to be potty trained. The first time you decide to go out and buy a potty, this child, this baby is supposed to understand what that even means.
Right.
Or you tell it, hey, maybe I'm going too far with that.
Or suffer my wrath. So it's kind of like not allowing the child to just grow and mature into what they need to be. You're kind of trying to drag the baby through all this maturation, and it knows nothing about it. Deserves the chance to
Absolutely.
figure it out.
And that speaks so much to this I hesitate to use the word duality because that comes very much from the white psychology world, but this kind of idea of the self, the true self, and the fictional self, because you have the idea that while I'm speaking so strongly in that way and saying we're being the abusers that were abusing us, there also needs to be this other side that's compassionate to the idea that, hey, this was me or this was my parent doing this to me, but they only did it because that's what was done to them, and we're all in this world, in this whiteness around us. We're all kind of born into this for a lot of generations now. So we've had a lot of opportunity to grow up and understand our Africanness stripped away from us.
And since you brought up our families, our parents, people who had access at us to abuse us or whatever, I think it's good to bring this up as far as the fight to getting from one place to a better place for your life. And I know you know this because it's a process. You start in one place and you end up someplace else. But I would caution people. We've talked about family addictions before, love for abuse, addictions to abuse. Be careful. You have to really know where you're at. Because sometimes the things we need to move away from, there are people associated with this person we don't want to be anymore. Unfortunately, some of those people are our family members. They're the ones who say, "Oh, that's not you. I know you. Don't forget, I raised you, or I've been knowing you ever since. And you getting brand new now. You fancy, huh?" You know what I'm saying? Sometimes we need to cut those people out of our lives, like I've said before, for an indefinite amount of time until we've built ourselves up to a pretty stable place where we're comfortable just being us and not worrying about if they shoot something at us, it's going to tear us down. We're in very fragile places, being babies at this, if you will. But there is a place for what you're saying, because at a certain point, when you can handle whatever they have, or when you can see them coming, you know what they're about and what they're going to try against you possibly, then you have some strength built up in yourself to where you can have some compassion, because it is just true. Our people have all been done wrong. Your mother wasn't the first mother to ever abuse. My father wasn't. This person's grandmother wasn't the first to ever. You know what I mean? It all came from something. Exactly. So there is a need for that compassion for people. But I would say in dealing with your stuff, you have to really be sensitive and spend a lot of time with you and dealing with you and your stuff to know what you can handle and when you can handle it.
That's true.
And that also, like I said, it's hard to move away from these bad things. We have become married to
that's a big
these positions. This me I used to be, or this person I really don't want to be anymore. And along with that marriage is not just family, but friends. Friends who we've had who, you know what I'm saying, let's say your problem smoking weed. A lot of people have their weed smoking buddies. People don't like to smoke by themselves, drink by themselves. These people, and like I've even brought up before, whole neighborhoods sometimes can bring back or draw you to doing a certain thing.
Of what used to be you.
Right, it's attached there. So you have to really be aware, and sometimes you won't even know that that's what all's going on, but you'll catch yourself and you'll find yourself really struggling like, I've experienced this, having been a smoker in the past, going to a certain place and not realizing it, but really being like, dang, I want to smoke right now. And then I'm just thinking, oh man, it's hitting me again. I don't want to do it. I want to do it. I should do it. I probably shouldn't. You go through this fight and you don't realize the trigger. So be aware of what's going on, where you are, who you're around, so you can start to see your triggers. And when you can identify them, then you get a step ahead things until you get a little bit stronger and have a few more good days under your belt.
So Cynthia, are you saying that it's actually okay to, because sometimes what you were saying just points out a good couple experiences in just this past week and a lot of my experiences. Are you saying that it's actually okay to retreat in battle? my mind. Is it almost like that?
I think that it can be very strategic and smart. Okay. We'll just say it like that, to retreat sometimes.
Yeah, I think I may need to look at it that way.
Right, and it doesn't have to be that it's cowardice. If you recognize it as a temporary retreat, you want to fight the battles that you're going to win. You may not win the whole war in one day, but if you need to step back and regroup and you can find a safe place to do that, absolutely. You need set yourself up to win. That's all I'm saying. Don't set yourself up to lose. Set yourself up to lose.
Fair enough. Yeah, the reason I make such a big point with me is because I've experienced myself to be one of the ways I've been impacted in life is I've given a lot of dogma coming up in life. These are the absolute ways that they are because we say it. Whoever the we is, those people are access to me. And again, all that compassion included, the idea being that growing up with all this dogma in your head, you start putting that dogma in your own head. And so here's the connection to what I see. I was almost taking a tangent, but the connection is when you actually see yourself in a place that's creating this energy that's drawing you back to a place where you don't want to be. For me personally, I have a tendency to say, no, you gotta stand here and you gotta do something with that. You gotta fight that. You should be strong enough to do this. You know what it is and all that kind of nonsense. When the truth of the matter is, I'm just not strong enough for this right now. I'll maybe take a retreat so that my main focus, I'm keeping my eye on the goal, as opposed to some nonsense dogma that's been put in your head.
Yeah, that makes sense. And don't throw it out the window. At some point, after you retreat, and it's knowing yourself. That's what our ancestors said, know thyself. It's knowing you. If you know you can't handle it, it's smarter to not deal with it. But at a certain point, you are going to stand up and say, I would retreat, but I think I can face this now. You know what I'm saying? You just work with yourself, and if it becomes a horrible, horrible thing, pull back. You know what I'm saying? But know yourself, get to know yourself, so that you can get to the place and really see what you're feeling and see, I think weakness is coming from this right here, and I don't want to deal with that. Let me just go ahead and regroup.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So I think another thing to keep in mind is even, okay, you're saying you did your 7 days.
Yeah.
For somebody, it may be 3. Like I said, it's a part of knowing yourself. But I think more than quantity, it's quality. I think it's more just taking the courage to step out and just try. Sometimes it's seeing where you are. You don't want to be there necessarily. Not that you're trying to throw everything about you away, because I don't want to put that out there that everything you are is wrong, but the negative things that have attached itself to you, you want to be something different. It's going to take some time, some planning, some thinking, some dealing with, and we kind of talked about this a little bit. Well, if I want to change things about me, how do I build a new me, if you will? Taking some of the good things about me, but how do you build a new you when all you knew was the old whatever you're trying to fix, get rid of? And it may, I don't want it to sound trite, but what I think is you kind of just have to step out there and try one small thing at a time. Like I said, baby steps. But you do have to get out there. And I hope nobody jumps all over my case, and if they do, that's fine too. But like those of us who knew anything about Christianity, like we learned, it's kind of stepping out on and faith in that it's something that you don't really know what's going to happen because it's new. But you just kind of step out. You step out on courage, if you will. You step out on just trying something.
Okay.
And that's life. That's being creative. That's using your imagination. Yeah. Step out on your imagination.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say you hope nobody jumps on your case. And I, myself coming from a Christian past myself, I I hear what you're saying, but one of the things is that the faith was only put in, and this Dr. Marcus says this a lot, the faith was only put in the form that the faith needs to be in Jesus Christ. And this is what I found in what I found helpful is so that I don't throw away all of what was African, what was truly spiritual about those things, is just to realize that faith can be applied to anything. But in the Christian form, we kind of learn you have to have faith in Jesus. Have faith in this whiteness. Right. Just because that's all that's good. That's right. So right now, that's what I'm finding helpful to me is that this faith is much deeper than that. It's a wholeness. It's a oneness that we share in this origin of African descendancy. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. So, Sister Shabazz.
Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering if we had anybody on the line right now that maybe we could kind of see what's going on in people's minds and what they have to say, maybe.
Sure, we can go on and go to the phone lines. And anybody else that wants to call in, the number is 760-569-7676. Participation code 948656#. First caller, 0222. You're live on More on the Horizon. 0222. All right, I'll assume that you are just listening in. 3686, you're live on More on the Horizon. 3686. All right. 4517, you're live on More on the Horizon.
I'm just listening.
Thank you for listening. Okay, 8229, you're live.
Hi. I've been listening. Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if I was on or not. I've been listening to the previous shows that you all, the previous programs that you all did about Re-Afrikanization and how it is a process that you have to, in a sense, take your time and not get too upset if you happen to fall short of your ideals. I had a particular question as far as a practical application of it. How do you all feel about, as far as music? We are a group of people, we love music, we love rhythm, love to dance and all, but what is something that we should use to critique the music? I listened to a previous War on the Horizon program about the white sex continuum, and basically what it did was it gave sort of a meter white sex to kind of measure different things against music, movies, and the like. Now, I don't really listen to too much of that crazy stuff, the hat hop, so to speak. Now, I'm not going to say that I hadn't at one point. I'm not even going to lie. Okay. But I notice now when I hear it, and I hear certain words when they say the B word and use all this stuff about incest and whatnot, it makes me cringe. And I notice that that's a difference that I've been seeing within myself over the last 9 months to a year or two. But now, is all music, how should we, evaluate all music? Is R&B wrong? Even though I know some of that music sometimes can be, off the chain, but how do we, evaluate different types of music? Now, we know the hat hop is out of line and unacceptable, but what about this, R&B that comes out? I know that some of these groups can seem, especially the male groups, they can seem kind of effeminized in a sense, and even the female, groups that they have and the artists, I'm only 22, but from what older people have been telling me, the clothes, at least were on, where, now they don't even really wear, you'd be lucky if they have a bra on or a shirt.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm just saying, how do we evaluate that? Because I'm not gonna lie, I love her music, but not all, music, so to speak. But what's, some Keith Sweat and whatnot. What is wrong with, and I'm just being honest here.
Absolutely. And so this is Brother Layla, and I would like to address you, sister. You're making a profound observation, I think, because we are, rhythm is something that is very, very much a part of our way, if you would. You're asking, how do we gauge, how do we evaluate what's good for us and what's not? The one thing I would like to share is part of my process, which has been, okay, so I need to look at how I've been impacted first. How has this whiteness, this system of whiteness, we just leave it there, how has it impacted my life? What things have I been infected by? And then once I start this sorting out process, then I can see myself clearer from the false self. Then, let me interject this also. A lot of times it's helpful also to stay away from absolutes, to understand that we're always, as Sister YaaYaa says, always in a stage in the process. And as Dr. Marcus says to me a lot of times, you're only perfect, and Sister YaaYaa, you said this too, you're only perfect when your life is over. So I just interject that just to say it's helpful to stay away from absolutes in evaluating anything. So then you can actually go a couple ways. You could research the groups themselves and find out who. This is my analytical brain, and sometimes these are things that I do. Research. You can research the groups themselves. Who signed them? Who's behind putting their music right? Okay, who's putting their music on the street? Who's writing the lyrics? Who's writing the actual instrumentals? Who's creating the beats? And through that, you can actually find what the themes they're driving into the public through the music. That's one way to look at it. The other way, sister, also what I've had to do is form some kind of confidence in my spirit, in my soul. Sometimes what doesn't feel right just is not right. And if it doesn't feel right to you, it's enough sometimes just to say, I'm going to turn it off because it just doesn't feel right. I might be wrong about it. I might be right about it. It might not have been that harmful, but it didn't feel right. So I'm just going to turn it off. Or you could say, right now where I am at this stage in the process, it doesn't feel so bad. Maybe let it ride for a little bit. That's what I would share with you. But definitely, I definitely find it really profound that you made the observation of how deep, how important rhythm is to us. That's something we can actually be proud of. Sister YaaYaa, you have anything?
I do, and I can definitely, sister, relate. I'm a music fiend. That's one of the struggles I've really had because music has always been a part of who I am. So I could not fathom just not listening to it and just letting everything go, like you said, it's R&B bad. And I think this is what Brother Layla was getting at. It's not that it's just all, one thing is just all bad in particular. We know people, a lot of people who have the platform to bring us music on a large scale are not conscious. But that's not to say the people creating the music, musicality-wise, instrumentation, and putting together the sound don't have any kind of African spirituality to them, even if they don't know it. I'm not saying they're walking around saying I'm an African spiritual person. That's probably not happening. But like he said, test your reaction to it, how it feels to you. And sometimes you can listen to something, and even I would say, if you pray and say, okay, I'm listening to this song. Help me to hear what it is. What am I hearing? You know what I'm saying? We do need outside help sometimes because a lot of times music is touching something we can't even put a finger on. It's just causing a reaction in us. And when you pay attention to your reaction to music, no matter what it is, because I'll sometimes go ahead and tell you, I'll listen to the things that we shouldn't listen to, quote unquote. Just because I remember what it felt like, and when I try that, sometimes it rubs me the wrong way, and I'm like, okay, I'm not there right now. But sometimes if that stuff can pass, and you're listening to things that you know is not the best thing for you to be listening to, but it's still doing something for you, that can kind of be it can be an indication of where you are. That could be sparking something that maybe inside yourself you're still dealing with because of the way the music is put together. So I would just say, don't be so hard on yourself, but listen. And like the first thing I thought of was at least something by the Irritated Genie is going to give you a gauge, of how to look at these things that are in what they call popular culture, things out in front of us, and to not negate the fact that music came from us anyway. If there's anything good about any music that, like anything, like we would describe it as soulful. I can't come up with really a much better word, but you know what I mean when I say it just sounds flat. There's some kind of African spirit behind that. And lastly, I would say be careful just swearing off all the music, even the bad stuff. Even if you're not listening to it for your own pleasure, the children are listening to this stuff. Even if they're sneaking around and doing it, and they have super conscious parents, the kids need to be accepted by their peers. If their peers are listening to it, the kids at least are curious about it. Yes, we should keep our kids from things, but the fact of the matter is, okay, I have a niece, she's 13 years old. Will kill in a heartbeat for this little girl. She's my heart. Her and her little sister. But I just know for a fact, and her mother's not necessarily conscious. I do what I can, but I'm not her mother. One of her favorite artists is Nicki Minaj. Okay, well, I gotta just deal with this now. But imagine how that feels, right? But now I have to make sure I listen to Nicki Minaj so I know what it is that's being fed to these babies that I love. And so I know what I need to be up on so I can talk to them and know, first of all, what is common with the kids now. It's crazy. But this is just where we are. So that's what I would say to that.
So that's interesting. And I do listen to the music as a form of analyzing it. Some of the more off the wall stuff, as I call it. They have this. I have a 14-year-old brother, and they have this artist out. I don't know. I forget what his name is. They come out so frequently now. It's hard to keep up with them every week. I forget his name. Maybe it'll come back to me. But I guess apparently the new things for my generation, I'm not even going to speak like I'm that much older because people my age in college are into that too. They want to pop supermollies and whatnot. And I had no clue what that was.
Yeah. So
I looked it up, and it's some new street drug they got, imitation crack as they call it. And it comes in the pill forms, and my brother kept repeating the main chorus, and they don't even know the other part of the song. All they keep saying is, I just popped the molly or whatever. Yeah. And and I had to get, and I don't want to make it seem like I'm trying to bash down on them, turn that off, and and I don't want to make it seem like I'm being there, because I don't want to make it seem like I'm trying to be their friend, so to speak. Make them think that they can run over me, and I really don't have any authority. But as you say, we have to listen to these things just to see what it is, and they know that it was a certain point where I was listening to all all types of stuff. But I've gotten to that point where if I hear it, it doesn't feel right. I'll find another song to listen to. Lately I've been listening to more R&B, and I don't exclude all music, but I just listen to it. Listen to the words, see how I feel, and for the most part, I don't get any particularly bad feelings. It's more of the R&B that came out, I would say, my generation, so to speak. You do hear the word sex a whole lot more often. And a lot of the times when I hear a lot of it like that, I do tend to, it makes me feel a certain type of way knowing, what I've been through and what motivated me to feel that way. But when I think about it, it wasn't, R&B that was playing a role in how I was acting out at a certain point. It really was a lot of the head banging, bass boosting lost in hip hop. And I'm sliding away from that, and I'm, critiquing more. And not all of the older artists are good. I mean, we see a lot of them try to make comebacks now, but it's very conditional. What they do is they say, well, your sound isn't really going to sell today like it was in the 70s. But we can still sign you back and get you back on the radio, or, better yet, you can get a reality show on VH1. But you just gotta, you gotta do something a little extra now. You gotta spice it up, so to speak. So some of these older artists from back when are coming out. Tony Braxton has his Off the Chain show on. Bring it like or something of that nature. And, for all of that, even they are kind of starting to slide. Whatever talent they did have, they have to sell out for the quote unquote new sound, so to speak.
Well, and they're getting just as people also.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not as young. They have a lot more to compete with.
Right. Mhm. And they come back and and that's what they do. They have to come back and spice it up, just to get a cheap reality show, and then Gladys Knight was on a song with Lil Wayne. Now what type of message? Yeah, you look at it, Gladys Knight worked with Lil Wayne, so this is basically what they have to do to kind of, bring it back. That doesn't even go together.
It does.
When I heard it, I thought it was, I looked at it, said she was working with him, and it just didn't seem, because they think that they're not going to sell to the younger crowd. But, Lil Wayne, and Gladys Knight, but that's what, apparently it was. So, I'm critiquing and I'm, listening, more carefully, actually reading through some of these lyrics. I think that's something we could do as well, especially with those younger than us. I plan on doing that with my younger siblings, print the lyrics out and actually go through it, read it from the music, because they're not going to hear it with the music. Well, I just like the beat. Most of the time, most people, that's because I used to say that, and if I like the beat, then how come I knew every word?
Right.
I just like the beat. So separate the lyrics from the song and dissect the lyrics. Go through it and say, what did he or she or they meant? What do you think they meant when they said that? But when you listening to it, you don't really catch all of that. So those have been some things, that I have been considering. I don't have this issue so much with movies. It's a movie, I don't really watch, a whole lot. But as far as the music, I love music, and it's just a question that I had.
Well, and one thing I did want to say, let me ask you a question. Have you seen the Irritated Genies video fighting the Poltergeist before?
Yes, I have. I watched the DVD. I need to get, kind of left me on a cliffhanger. I only have one. So I'm going to have to go and get the other parts of it. But it was, from what I saw, it was, even for that one DVD, it was, basically, just a crash course. And he's going, and it was interesting seeing how the Jews infiltrated, really how they really, and I've been doing research on Jews in Hollywood. This book I have, if anyone wants to look into, about blackface, white voices. And it's about the history of blackface in Hollywood and how that basically translated into everything else we see today, particularly with, and I think this book was written by a small hat, but that didn't really stop me from reading it. I mean, you get inside their minds.
Yeah, sister, do you know the author for the family, the author of that book?
Okay, I have it right. I have it here. The author of this book is Michael Rogan.
Okay.
Oh. Okay.
But when I looked at the people that gave the book reviews and the you know, in the beginning of the books where they give thanks to all the people that helped him, he listed nothing but a whole lot of small hats. He either made me think he either was one, or he has some really tight, deep affiliations with them, or he just affiliated with them for the book. But for the knowledge that was in the book, it seemed like he was pretty familiar with. And, you know, the culture, it's kind of hard sometimes to go off by their last names. They don't all sound small hattish, so to speak.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we all learned that they did a lot to kind of hide in the mix with those last names. So
yes, the book. His name is Michael Rogan. It's Black Face, White Noise, Jewish Immigrants in the Hollywood Melting Pot.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that, sister. That sounds like an interesting read.
And one other thing I wanted to bring up, I didn't know if you were familiar with the African Insurrection music that you can definitely get out of their artists through the War on the Horizon website. And that's some kind of alternative music. It's some conscious African music. It's got good hip hop beats, you know what I'm saying? But good music you can listen to without, you know, you don't have to have a book out in front of you to really break down what they're saying. It's safe. I'm just saying it's safe music. So if you just want to relax and listen to something that is black and is gonna empower you, I would definitely suggest any of the artists from the War on the Horizon website through the African Insurrection Music label. But since we don't want to hold you too long, we really, really appreciate you calling in and telling us what you think and for your question and making us think. We really appreciate you. And for your realness, too, because, you know, everybody don't just come out and say, I'm just going to say it, I still listen to it, I still do it. That's just real. And we really appreciate that. And also with those babies, with the kids, that's one thing for the kids. One thing that they pick up on immediately, children are genius in picking up when somebody's being real with them. So when you sit down with them with the lyrics, be honest with them. And that's your brother. You know, he knows you. But, you know, it's not that you're trying to shove anything down their throats, but you want to understand what they're getting from it. And you want to walk them through, okay, at the end of the day, what do you really want out of your life? You want to have a nice wife. You want to have some kids. You want to be settled. How is what you're dealing with right now helping you there? We know you're not. He's 14. He's not ready to actually be there. But help him to see where the things that they're talking about in these songs, especially popping mollies and all these other things, could really damage him permanently to affect his future. And how what they're saying sounds good, and even going to the actual artists and how they don't even all live this way. They didn't really have these experiences that they're talking about. So it makes no sense for the kids to get drawn in as though this is something that is desirable that's really going to help them. So I would just give you that too. But we really, really appreciate you, sister.
All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. 5469, you're live on War on the Horizon.
Hello?
Hi. Yes.
Hello? Yeah, I'm just listening.
Well, thanks a lot, brother.
All right, thanks for listening, brother.
All right, that's the last call.
Okay. And Sister Shabazz, as the third member of the team, did you have anything? We talked about a lot of things, even fortunately, even getting to music and entertainment as a part of the Re-Afrikanization process, and just fighting to become. I know you said you came from a very conscious background from even when you were young, so I know that you're fortunate in that way. But can you relate to anything else in your life, maybe, and the struggle that you go through, and maybe the steps that you take to help you get to where you want to be?
Of course. I came into consciousness when I was like 16, but that was a very festive 16 years, and probably done had some festive years since then. So
I like that.
Definitely. Not going to incriminate myself too much, but definitely. Well, one thing I'll say first for the brother, Layla. I'm not sure how to pronounce it exactly, but there is an herb that might be able to help you. It's spelled Lobebea, LIA, and it helps you quit smoking. I think you take it with meals, and what it does is make the tobacco taste nasty to you, so it kind of loses some of the appeal. So
Wow.
you might want to check into that. It should be at like a health food store or something like that.
Got it. SLAB
L
LI.
It's LOB
Okay.
ELIA.
Thank you, Sister Shabazz. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. You're
And
welcome.
it is Layla.
Layla. Okay. Sorry, I got tongue tied because I was trying to think about how to pronounce the herb, and I always mess that one up. So between your name starting with L and the herb starting with L, I do apologize for that.
No, thank you.
Oh, definitely, definitely. As far as music goes, that was definitely a struggle with me because I was definitely a big music person, and I still listen to things that people would think are questionable. Especially my biggest thing, I don't listen to hat hop a lot, but when I'm working out, sometimes I will. I might put on some Buster Rhymes or something that's it's all old school stuff that I'm used to, not any of the new stuff. I really can't get with that. But what I did was start to eliminate gradually. I eliminated one of my favorite artists at a time. I started off obviously with R. Kelly. He was the first to go, which was hard because he has so many beautiful songs, along with the degenerate stuff. So he was first to go, and then I had to let go of DMX, and then I had let go of Jay-Z, I was a big Jay-Z fan. And now listening to some of the stuff, I'm like, wow, that's probably what was wrong with me. All this Jay-Z. So I don't know if that's helpful to anybody, but not necessarily feeling like you have to give up everything at once, but to make it a process and just figure out, okay, who is doing the most damage to me mentally, and then just get rid of one at a time. Once you're doing good without one person, then go on and go to the next. And I definitely agree with Sister YaaYaa as far as the African Insurrection music artists, because they all have a different style, so it's easy to find somebody that you really like. And we've been doing a lot of promotion for the Black Power Manhood rap CD from United Front, but brother Ambassador O from United Front will actually be coming out with a new CD in just about a month or two from now, called Cypher Incomplete. So there's always something new to listen to, and that will help you when you're trying to get over the hip hop addiction, because it is quality music. It's same quality as what you'd hear on the radio. It's not some kind of real corny stuff. So I would definitely check into that.
Sister Shabazz, quick question for you. So when your journey through letting go of the various artists, this may be helpful for the family. Definitely helpful for me. When you began to start letting go one artist after another, do you remember in that process? And this is kind of really being trying to break things down like to their maybe a base point. Do you remember any of the thoughts or experiences that you dealt with, say, after first letting go of R. Kelly? Did you miss him? Did you, on a day-to-day basis, kind of, how did you experience the letting go process? If you're willing to share.
Sure. It was definitely a challenge. R. Kelly was somebody, he had a song for every occasion. Like, he had such a wide range of music. It didn't matter if you were in love, if you were being silly, and like hood stuff. It was something for every occasion. So when something came up and you wanted to play that song and only he had a song about that, it's like, man, what do I do? And there's one song by him that I used to love. I thought it was so beautiful, and he actually came out with it when he was still with the Public Announcement. And sometimes I still miss that song to this day, but if I miss it, I'm gonna just have to sing it because I'm not gonna play him. I gave out all the CD. I actually had to give away my CDs to make sure I wouldn't play it. I either threw them out or gave them away, so they'd be out of the house. DMX was a little difficult just because it reminded me of a certain time in my youth when things were fun and whatnot. Jay-Z, I just really like Jay-Z. I don't know why. I just really like Jay-Z. So it was definitely a struggle, but what I had to think about, I actually, like was mentioned, I had to listen to the lyrics and listen to, what are these people actually saying? And especially Jay-Z. I mean, well, DMX too. I got rid of DMX before Jay-Z because his stuff was just really crazy, and he would mix spirituality in there in a really funky kind of way. So I had to get rid of him first because that was just a little much. And then Jay-Z just had to go because there was like no songs that you could listen to that it was not something objectionable and something to put you back in that mind state that you didn't want to be in. All that misogyny and the B's and H's, and you start to go back and kind of act like that, because when I was growing up, it seemed like that's what we were molded to be. That's what we saw on the videos, and regardless of having knowledge of self or not, you kind of want to be a little bit like that video model because she's glamorous and it seems fun. And so just to get all of those kind of thoughts out of my mind so I could be the kind of person I wanted to be, I had to kind of let that go. And we can continue this. I do want to let you know, though, that there is one more caller on the line that just called in. I don't know if they're just listening or not.
If you want to check, we would like to take the callers if they have something to say or they want to add or ask a question.
Okay, let's see here.
And thanks for that, Sister Shabazz. Thanks for sharing.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, you're welcome. I don't know if that helped at all, but that was just my little experience in degeneracy.
Absolutely. All your additions help.
Definitely. 0222. You're live on War on the Horizon. Did you have a question or comment?
Good evening. I'm just listening. Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening, sister.
All right.
Yeah, I wanted to thank you, Sister Shabazz, because one thing through my process I'm learning is just for this is how I'm experiencing a lot of things. I'm noticing that a lot of the problems that I'm having letting things go, sort of the symptoms, if you would, that I experience, I find those have a close tie to how I've been impacted by certain things. So I feel it's kind of like a colorful illustration to when I try to share how I'm impacted, so to speak, when I'm trying to reverse this process. There always seems to be a tie between the impacting on this whiteness thrown into the world and thrown into me, and the symptoms that I end up experiencing when trying to let them go.
Definitely. And that's another, probably the hardest part about letting go is you really have to analyze, why do I like this song so much? What memory does this hold for me? And when I thought about why I felt so happy listening to this song and what memories that tied back to, I realized that's not the person I need to be. Those memories were not, positive memories when you really analyze it, in totality. So that was something that helped me let it go. But I really did have to work through that. Why does this have such a hold on me? Why is this even appealing to me?
Absolutely.
Okay. Just because I like to always give some kind of solution when people go through, fighting through to getting to where they want to be. Music, smoking, drinking, being mean, being too nice, whatever the case may be, and people are in all different places, and I know it runs the gamut. I just kind of wanted to share some things that helped me. Okay, you go through the process, you learn about consciousness, you decide that's better for me than what I've been, and what I have been and what has been affecting me has been hurting me. I'm all about, what do you do? No, what do you do? Okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, what kind of things can you do? Other than things that Brother Layla has shared and that I've shared also in the past couple shows. But one thing that I always recommend is to be around like-minded people. Sometimes that's hard when you're conscious because it's the smaller pool, especially depending on what city you're in, what state you're in. And reading conscious books, of course, so like Brother Laila mentioned, it's feeding you good things. It's getting your mind set on what you're really aiming for. And I would even suggest going to lectures if you can get to where people are lecturing, some conscious information, because even if you don't know the people when you get there, it's still the atmosphere of being in a room full of people who are after this same particular purpose, give or take a few, of course. And that's a good place to meet people, to find out the next event, so you can busy yourself with the things that are leading you to where you want to be, as opposed to being stuck constantly fighting against what you used to do. Give yourself something to substitute. Give yourself something else, an alternative to look forward to. And we also discussed this before, giving yourself rewards. Like, Brother Laila, tell people, you're always so honest, I just want to put you out there. What was it you told me that you did those 7 days, other than the cash, of course, to keep you from smoking, but the motivation?
Right. So, my mind actually went to something different. I thought you might have been talking about my fashion sense or lack thereof at first.
Oh no.
But some of the things that I had done, we're drinking a lot of water, and there was
the reward.
The reward. So I had this. I'll make it a long story. How about that? I'll make a short story long.
Okay.
But so last show we also talked about how to get unstuck. We were talking about how to get unstuck, and one of the things that I realized is that the cigarette for me waking up used to be this trigger, like I get out of my little fog and then bring my mind to the idea of the cigarette, and I say, okay, that'll get me up. So Hardee's happens to have a chicken, egg, and cheese sandwich. That was enough, and I did mention that to you because that was something that I was able to kind of reward myself with in the morning to say, okay, well, this is something that I can kind of use to get me out of bed. So
in place of the
cigarette. So that's not a plug for Hardee's, by the way. I'm not listening. That's just something that was close to my taste buds, I guess.
And I just put it out there because that's real talk. Like that's a real place you find yourself in the morning. Like, oh, you used to look forward to this thing in particular, maybe in the morning, or maybe it was on the weekends, or whatever your thing was, and when you did it, but find something to reward yourself with. And like I said, go ahead and just choose the lesser of two evils. I'm not saying the chicken, egg, and cheese biscuit is the most conscious African thing you can eat, but it's not smoking a cigarette. And I'm not saying you have to take on all your opponents at one time. Deal with what you have in front of you. He wanted to stop smoking. What worked was the chicken, egg, and cheese biscuit in the morning so he wouldn't start with that cigarette and he could progress throughout the rest of the day. I don't see no shame in it.
Okay, looks like her call dropped. She should be right back in a minute to proceed with the program. And in the meantime, we will take a small music break.
Yeah, let's go. Sitting in this.
Never mind, we have her back. One moment. You back, fam?
Yeah, so yes, ma'am.
All right.
You start to get real. You get to talking. You know what I'm saying? Hardee's must have been listening. They decided that since this wasn't a commercial for them, they just gonna cut me off. I don't appreciate it, but it's okay. We're gonna move on. But yeah, I just like that. It's just real things, so that you don't have to condemn yourself as you're going through this process. far as the people that we're around, be around people who love and care about you too. Because we talked about how addictions, as far as any kind of addiction, regardless of the substance or whatever you're addicted to, is based on some kind of rejection. A lot of times we deal with where naturally we need relationships. We talked about this.
Yeah.
So you need relationships to live in life. Nobody can stand alone and just, I don't need anybody. That's not the way we operate as African people. We are all parts of this whole. So when you have faulty relationships, or as a child or whatever, you didn't get what it took to make a good relationship, what we're actually doing when we're addicted to something is we've made a relationship out of it. It is what we can depend on. It is what it's some kind of give and take somehow in our minds, where this becomes a relationship to us. So when you're trying to break that, recognize that what you really need is relationships with people, just friendships. It doesn't have to be romantic or anything like that. Just being able to share and relate to people and have them relate to you and understand you as a person, and just, validate you. We all need that. That doesn't make you weak and needy all the time. We all just need that. And you can't neglect that for yourself, especially when you're going through a trying time, and you're so fragile while you're trying to let go of something that's been so much a part of you for a long time. Another thing that I did was I made a list on a piece of paper, and I drew a line down the center of the paper. On one side, I put me, and on the other side, I put not me. Now, I would put on the me side all the good things about me. Obviously, I don't only do good things. Obviously, I had bad traits, or as we talk about this false self, the things that were not me was, I'll admit, at a time in my life, I had more of a negative attitude than I had a positive attitude. We'll say it nicely like that. And so what I would put on the other side is having a bad attitude, forgetting to think about how other people feel sometimes, other people's feelings, and the negative things where I'm able to sort out, okay, this is not really me. It may be a result, and it's working through me. It's a result of things that I've been through, like we talked about abuse and other things, but I don't have to identify with that being me. That's not the me I want to be. That's the me that's what I'm trying to get away from. And every morning, all throughout, time or whatever, I would add different things to the list as I thought about them, me and not me. And every morning I would read that list until it became a part of me to where I understood when something came up or I did something bad. It's not that it just stopped because of that, but when I did something that was less than what I wanted to be, or not really me, I could automatically recognize it. So you kind of get that step up ahead of it. And then another thing I did was I made a list of rules to live by. And, it was things like, as a woman coming through, mainstream Black womanhood, which we don't have a lot of very positive things to say about that. One of the things I had written on my list was compliment other women. And that's something that I think, we don't realize, not to get into the actual things, my example, but it's just, I wrote out things, this is what the person I want to be would live by. This is what I want to live by. So every morning also, I would read that, and I would test myself. I try to memorize all of them. I think I had 13 at the time. It got up to 13 or 15. And every day I would memorize, the list until I could just recite it to myself. And then I stopped, at a point I stopped reading it. And I was like, oh man, one day I was like, I'm slipping, I got to get back to my rules. And I went back to the paper and I realized I had actually just started incorporating these things into what I did throughout the day. So, there's something special about putting something down on a piece of paper and looking at it and reminding yourself of it. It really helps to solidify what you're trying to do. So that's something that it really helps. It may seem like, fantastical, like it just sounds good, but it worked for me. It may not work for everybody, but it's something that I would recommend you to try. And last but not least, as we talk about people, I know I've been jumping around a lot, and I kind of hit on this before, but this is something that I'm having to really come to grips with right now in my personal life. I have come to the realization through other people's help. I couldn't even see this on my own. There were people who I considered friends. I was a good friend to them. I'm realizing now I'm a friend of theirs, but they're not really friends with me. I'm giving, I'm being a friend, but they're not doing the same thing back. And so I've been lying to myself and still considering them friends. Doesn't make them horrible people and the worst and all that, but I don't have to lie to myself and tell myself that these are my friends. I am their friend, but they're for whatever reason not in the place to be the friend that I need them to be. And I think the more you can be honest with yourself about what's around you, the easier you can see the things that drag you back to the wrong things that you don't want to be and the things that you don't want to do. So, I didn't want to prolong. Brother Layla, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
I just kind of piggybacking on what the friendship thing sticks out close to me because you're absolutely right, and you made the statement about being married to these names that we give ourselves and the way we feel that we are and we're these people. Well, what's included in that is just like you say, these people, other people that we have actually formed relationships with, and they may also be entwined with these other ways of, it's kind of like it seems to me like a spider web, like, some of those people who you can call them friends but are not being friendly to you, is a lot of kind of mixed in there with memories inside yourself, how you see yourself and how you might see you carrying out your day. That might be even mixed in, like for me, with smoking a cigarette, like, and so thinking about this person, or as soon as this person calls me, there's this immediate trigger with other things that aren't good for me because this person's not really my friend. And I'm just calling that one and the same thing, or a big spider web, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I got a lot from your last statement there, so I'm sad that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right, well, Sister Shabazz, do you have anything else you want to add, or are there any other new callers on the line, Ethan?
No, ma'am, that's it.
Okay. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. This has been a Taste of the Southwest with Sister YaaYaa and with Brother Layla. And just a reminder, we won't be on next Sunday, but we will be on the following Sunday. So make sure you call a friend and tell them to listen in, and hopefully we can learn some more from each other. We really appreciate everybody for listening. We always appreciate Sister Shabazz for all her help with everything, and even being forced into being a co-host. And for always stepping in, and even when people aren't as, what's the word, on time with things, Sister Shabazz, when they're supposed to call you and tell you things. I'll just go ahead and say this right on the show. But I thank you for your patience and for helping us out anyway, all the time. All right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Good evening, everybody.
Yeah, let's go. Sitting in this place to me seems like paradise, but life is a gamble like the roll of a paradise. Trying to get checks on the side like a pair of Nikes. My black skin is beautiful, you times don't wear it right. Protected by my essence and protected by my weapon. My Bible is a rifle, my Quran is a bomb to strike down my enemies. My knife is my psalms. God bless your soul, I got your life.